Hey guys, in this video we will be breaking down Kirkland Lake, and to help me with that I have Elizabeth Kelly, who is an investor and she also has a property management company up there. Kirkland Lake is a little different than the other cities that we've done because Kirkland Lake has a very small population. So it's really hard to divide the areas up because it has a population of 9,000 people. So the way we did this video was that Elizabeth came up with a PowerPoint and she kind of gave us a general overview of Kirkland Lake, and then we went over the map and she just kind of talked about the areas. We really couldn't categorize it into A, B, or C or D areas just because it has 9,000 people. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Also, thank you so much for all the support that you guys are giving. Thank you for all the likes, the subscribes. And please let us know if anything, like if you have any feedback, if you think we can do something better, please drop in the comments. If you want to see a different city, just drop it in the comments and we'll make sure we do it. Anyways, thank you so much. Without further ado, here's the video. Today with me I have Elizabeth Kelly, who is a expert in the Kirkland Lake area, and she is going to help us today with understanding the Kirkland Lake market. Hey Elizabeth.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, hey Elizabeth, before we get started, can you briefly, talk about yourself? I know you are an investor yourself, you have a property management company, and you do a bunch of other stuff. So
Yeah, pretty much my whole world is real estate. I started investing about 15 years ago in Newmarket, Ontario,
okay.
and we've just kind of grown from there. We do rent-to-owns, we do multi-units. We've done some burrs, some flips, some wholesaling. So we've kind of done a lot of different strategies. The majority of the properties that we own at this point are in Kirkland Lake, Ontario. So we discovered Kirkland Lake in 2010, and we really liked the numbers. We liked the fundamentals of the market. We liked the cash flow. And the other thing we thought about at the time was we were learning a lot about investing in gold and silver. And we thought, you know what, if we're going to buy real estate, maybe it would make sense to also buy in a town that's mining for gold and basically, mining for money. So that was how we ended up here. And we've seen a lot of changes over the last 10, 12 years, but it's been really interesting to see the changes in a smaller community, because I've always grown up in big communities. I'm born in Halifax, grew up in Scarborough, moved to Newmarket. So the adjustment to a little rural Northern Ontario town has been pretty eventful, but it's amazing because what it gives me the opportunity to do is have a really in-depth understanding of my community, my tenants, the profile of the people who live here and the market itself. And it would be much harder, I think, to have that kind of an understanding of a much larger community. So I consider it a blessing.
Awesome. Anyways, I know you got a PowerPoint slide ready for us. Thank you again. Thank you for getting all of that ready.
No problem. My pleasure. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything.
Awesome.
So this is obviously the map of Kirkland Lake, and I know we're going to go into it a little more in depth in a few minutes, and I'm excited to sort of walk people through. Kirkland Lake, as we were talking about earlier, it's not like Toronto where it's okay, this is a bad market or a bad neighborhood. It's like, okay, this house or this particular property has a challenge, but
there's only 9,000 people, right? And Scarborough has a population of, I think in 2016 had about 600,000 people, right? Yeah. So you can break down Scarborough, but breaking down Kirkland Lake is 1% of Scarborough's population, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's completely different. So Kirkland Lake's been around just over 100 years, and the funny thing is, it was originally named after Kirkland Lake, and they filled the lake in with tailings from the mine, so there actually is no longer a Kirkland Lake, which I always find so interesting. Kind of funny, right?
Yeah.
So most people, the first thing they want to know about is employment when they're looking at a market or when they're considering deciding if they want to invest there. So major employers, gold mining, absolutely number one, no question about that. We have a lot of variety underneath it though, which is part of what gave us the initial comfort level to really move into Kirkland Lake and to establish a good foothold here. Because we've all seen the situation in Alberta when oil and gas tanked, the province kind of went poof. But Kirkland Lake has ridden out, okay, the price of gold has gone down, so it's not as active. Kirkland Lake has ridden those sort of ebbs and flows out, strictly based on the fact that they have a large variety in their employment base. So there's a lot of forestry, Ministry of Natural Resources, federal government has a very large Veterans Affairs office here. They just did another big hire. I think they added another 25 positions last year. We have a company called Delshan Therapeutics. So for those people who aren't familiar with them, because I certainly wasn't, it's basically an extremely large pot farm for the government. Like
marijuana?
Oh yes, like huge, some secret undisclosed location.
Really?
Yeah, it's enormous apparently.
Well, you don't know where it is.
I don't. I
That's
think
hilarious.
they did that intentionally, right? I think it's in the middle of the woods somewhere with an awful lot of security. So that's the thing about being up north here is there's huge chunks of land where you can just get lost in them without too much trouble.
Sure.
We've also had FedEx open up a distribution center here. Kirkland Lake is sort of the hub of the district in terms of transportation and healthcare and education and those kinds of things. So FedEx has a huge distribution center here that opened I think 2 years ago. We've got the district hospital, so most of the smaller communities will have their own kind of little hospital, but we've got the larger one for surgeries and emergency treatment and those kinds of things. We're also the COVID treatment center. We're the only hospital in the district that has the proper equipment to be able to handle COVID and that kind of stuff. So we've also got 2 family health clinics. There's 2 seniors residences and there's Northern College, and those are sort of the higher level employers. And then we have sort of all the smaller traditional if for those of you who use Tim Hortons as a barometer to measure a community, we may only have 8 to 10,000 people, but we got 2 Tim Hortons.
Wow.
So yeah, people love their Tim Hortons up here. The other really interesting thing, and people don't talk about it a lot, but I think we should pay a lot of attention to the tenant profile, and we're going to talk about how that impacts, because people get really hung up on the number or the population size, but there's a huge component that's missing, and we're going to talk about that in a couple of slides when we talk about the tenant profile and who we're looking at. So there's a reason why businesses love to be in Kirkland Lake. As I mentioned, we are the transportation. We're also the economic center of the district, but there's no business licensing or development fees. So Kirkland Lake is extremely committed to bringing new businesses to the area and helping them establish themselves. I know there's a couple of companies. I'm on the economic development committee, and there's a couple of large companies looking at establishing businesses here within the next couple of years as sort of their gateway to Northern Ontario. There's also a number of incentives. We're sort of considered Northern Ontario, so there's a lot of government incentives to businesses that want to establish themselves up here as well. But most people are like, business, just tell me the numbers. All I want to see is the numbers.
Yep.
So single family homes, about 60% of those in Kirkland Lake are owner occupied. Average price has increased to $175,000. There are still properties available for $100,000. Obviously, there are probably ones that are going to need some work, but this is definitely one of the markets where, BRRRRs work still.
After the cash flow, right? A lot of BRRRRs, you're able to refinance it, but like you're not renting, you could lie to yourself, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Exactly. And then you've got the 1% rule is still possible. I'm going to show you a property like that on the next slide.
Awesome.
The flip side of that is obviously the larger the multi-unit residential. So the cap rates that we're looking at right now in our market are between 6 and 7%, or between 6 and 7. When we started buying in 2010, we would pick up properties at a 14 cap. So that shows you how much the market despite being, sort of a smaller, I would classify Kirkland Lake as a tertiary market when you're looking at, segmenting into primary, secondary, tertiary.
Yeah,
Definitely it's a smaller market, but it's the market like this where you're going to find the cash flow for sure.
for sure.
So a low end building, you might pay 40 to 50,000 a unit, probably going to require some work, probably have some low rents and tenants who've been there for a long time. But the higher end stuff, we're getting 100,000 a unit.
Wow.
So just to show you, 1% rule is still possible. This is a listing that I looked at this morning on realtor.ca. This is 44 Poplar Avenue. You can buy it for $129,900. This is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom. This is a really cute little place. I looked through the photos, and based on what I see, I'd be looking to get $1,400 a month plus utilities.
Is this turnkey?
Yes, this one would be turnkey.
Wow. So it's 1% when you buy turnkey property. So if you're doing the whole birthing, could be more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've noticed there's quite a few wholesalers in town now. So I know that this area is kind of primed. Like there are definitely properties that you can pick up for, $30, $40, $50,000 and be able to turn them around. I mean, I remember when we first came to town, we bought a duplex for $5,000.
5,000?
5,000. Hydro was disconnected, like paint hanging off the ceiling in sheets. Like it was in bad shape. There's no doubt. But I think we put 50 or 60,000 into it, and now it's a cute little cash flowing duplex. And I mean, the prices have moved up since we first came to town, but the returns are still there to make it work.
$5,000 is
yeah.
You can probably sell the everything cost price, all the material, right? But yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's it. But and I mean, I don't know, 8 years later, we bought a vacant lot for 5,000. So it's all sort of, you and the Rise members, people know it's about finding the motivated sellers. It's about finding the people who, have a situation or an issue that's causing them pain and being able to present a solution to them that makes sense and removes the pain point.
Absolutely.
So tenant market, this is typically what people's sort of second question is. So in my experience, I know in Toronto that there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of demand, and for low end units, you still get people competing just to have somewhere to live. And in Kirkland Lake, it's very different. It's, the higher end units, that's where the demand is, and I'm saying higher end. And I don't mean higher end like a high end like a Forest Hill in Toronto. I'm literally talking about like a nice kitchen that has a backsplash in it and the appliances are less than 10 years old. Like
that's higher end.
That's higher end. Like is it clean? Is it, well cared for? Or does it have like a lot of the dated finishes and the old counters from the cabinets from the 50s that had just been painted a million times. Like it just, you're sort of, you're doing some of the cosmetic things to show that you care about the property, and those would be considered higher end units, and that's who attracts the higher end tenants. So I'm thinking like nurses and dentists and doctors and those kinds of things. People will typically come to town to accept a job, and they'll rent for 1 to 2 years before they'll make the decision, okay, yes, I want to move here permanently. I want to bring my family here. This is where we're going to, set up home base. By then they have an understanding of the community. They know kind of what street they want to live on, and they go from there. Most people, when they're new to town, they're not buying immediately. They're buying a couple of years in.
And they don't need nothing like fancy, like fancy Airbnb like in Toronto. Something that's clean, like like you said, a backsplash is high end, right? Like makes sense.
Yeah, the expectations are definitely very different.
Okay.
Now, one of the things we talk a lot about population in Kirkland Lake. One of the things that's really important for people to consider is the fact that there's a lot of people who are here working in construction, working in the mines. So they're on shift work. So they might be 7 on, 7 off. They might be 14 on, 14 off. And a lot of times, especially in the mining industry, people don't move their families. The families stay where they, where they want to raise their kids and where they have, support and those kinds of things. And these people come into town and they're here for 7 days and gone for 7 days, or for 14 days they're here and they're working, and then they fly home to New Brunswick, for example. I know New Brunswick is where a lot of our mining clients come from. So they want somewhere to rent, they want somewhere to live, but they're not partying, they're not raising families. They're literally, they work 10 or 12 hours a day. They come home, they, have a few beers and they go to bed, and they get up the next day and they do it again for, 14 days. And the next day they hop in their truck and they drive home, and they're gone for 10 days or 12 days. And then they come back again.
No one goes to Kirkland Lake to party. They go to work. Maybe some people, I don't know.
Yeah, some people maybe. I'm not one of those people. I really enjoy the outdoor lifestyle that comes with it. I wasn't expecting to become as much of an outdoor girl as I have, but like, you'll see the guys coming back from, they'll come back from a run off, and they're towing their boats behind them, and they're towing their snowmobiles and their jet skis behind them, because there's so much outdoor stuff you can do here. I mean, we're 2 or 3 minutes away from being in the bush, so it's really nice. So a large percentage of the local renters don't live in Kirkland Lake. That's why you'll see, like, everybody's like, oh, the population's been really stable. Yeah, the population's been stable because we're not factoring in, 1,000 or 1,500 people who are renting but aren't using Kirkland Lake as their home address. For when they fill out their census, it's their home address is somewhere else, but they're fantastic renters. They make good incomes. There's guys in the mine, $120,000 a year. $140,000 a year. Like, they're making good money. So
on like the census, it could be showing that the population is going down, but reality, you have more renters, right?
Yeah, and that's really my concern is, do I have the opportunity to choose high caliber renters?
Of course.
And in my experience, we absolutely do. And our property management company really caters to providing the high end rentals.
Mm-hmm.
People know when they're looking for high end that they should be contacting us, because that's what we specialize in.
Okay.
So when it comes to what we get inquiries about the most, houses are really highly sought after. So, and typically that's something that most people don't buy necessarily, because, you're capped out, 5 mortgages and you're capped out with a lender. Well, if you can buy 5 single family homes or 5 duplexes, most investors are going to buy 5 duplexes.
Of course,
but there is still a lot of demand there for the single family home. In Kirkland Lake, we don't have a transit system. So when you're looking at buying properties here, it's really important that you're thinking about parking. Mm-hmm. Because your higher end tenants are going to have vehicles, and most of them have big vehicles, pickup trucks, because we get a lot of snow. Our roads aren't always, the best. Like, we're competing with a lot of tractor trailers, so you get like dinged windows and that kind of stuff. So most people have large trucks, large pickup trucks.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, and for people who don't have their own vehicles, then the only really way they get around is, their own, their feet or their bike or whatever, or taxis. So we want to make sure we have parking available if we're really cornering the market on those higher end tenants. The other thing that is particularly attractive is making sure that the unit, ideally, or at least the building, has on-site laundry.
Okay.
You're not going to attract a higher end tenant and then find them at the laundromat doing laundry. That's not going to work.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it's important to remember that the vast majority of people, if they are not sort of the high-end shift work people, the vast majority of people here have dogs. So we've learned the hard way that, all those other flooring coverings, carpet, and none of those work. It's LVP all the way.
What does LVP stand for?
Luxury vinyl plank.
Okay, makes sense. It makes sense though, right? If people are outdoorsy, it's like they have dogs, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah, people have dogs, and it's funny because most people don't have one dog. Most people have 2 dogs or 3 dogs.
Really? Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, okay, and they're big furry dogs. Like, we're up north, so there's huskies and there's Saint Bernards and there's all kinds of other really large, fluffy, hairy.
No, it makes sense, right? Because like that's what like if I lived there, I'd have big dogs too, because it's natural, right? Like I'm sure those guys go out a lot too, right? In the backyard, like
Yep. And we go out in the bush with them. Like when I moved up here, I had a miniature poodle. He wore coats and boots, and people laughed their heads off at us
Of
because
course.
he hated the cold. He wasn't meant for it up
He's
here.
a city dog, right?
Exactly. He didn't even like the rain, let alone the snow. So, people up here, we're 5 or 6 hours north of Toronto, but people are like, oh, North Bay, are you close to North Bay? And no, North Bay's halfway.
North Bay is in the
North
south.
Bay, yeah, you've got another 2.5 or 3 hours to go before you reach us. So a little bit about our company and our services. My husband and I founded the company in 2009, and it was originally just because we wanted to manage our investment properties.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our intention. And then around 2014, I guess, we started being approached more and more by other investors who wanted the opportunity to be able to benefit from the cash flow they got up here, but they weren't able to manage it from a distance. So we basically pivoted into a full service property management company for anyone who owns properties. We do everything from the basic tenant placement and day-to-day management, repairs and maintenance. We can do, my husband's a licensed engineer. We are a licensed electrical services provider now. So we can do everything from securing permits, managing trades. We have a renovation team who can do major gut and renovation work. We're just wrapping up the last, I think we have about another 6 weeks to go on a 5-unit complete gut and redo for an owner. And we have a couple of other projects coming up. So we can take care of all of your needs. You can literally, I'd say probably 40% of my owners have never stepped foot in Kirkland Lake.
Yeah.
So you don't let the distance deter you or distract you. You don't need to be up here every weekend for sure. We really specialize in managing your investment property as if it was our own. Everybody gets treated the same.
Yeah, like when I look for property management companies, I look, like one big thing for me is like, can they manage renovations? Like, because it's like such a, how you're closing, you're stressed out about closing, and then you need to get the contractor in.
Yeah.
And then, this and that, like, you know what I mean? Like, sure, it's fun to take you down, but like sometimes you're just too busy, right? Especially if you have like a million things going on. So, yeah.
We've really worked hard to put the systems and the processes in place. So if we're managing a large scale renovation for an owner, then, every 1 to 2 weeks, my husband will go through and take pictures to make sure, the contractors and the workers have done everything, and, before and after photos and showing progress and communicating. We use a property management software called Buildium, which allows us to be really seamless for investors. It could be 3 o'clock in the morning and they're in Hawaii on the beach, and they can log in and see, who paid rent this month and are there any work orders that I need to be aware of. So
100%. Hawaii is I want to go more like Costa Rica, but yeah, I think Hawaii is a lot expensive. Anyways.
Nice for vacation, though.
All right. Anyways, Elizabeth, let's move to the second part of our interview. Normally we have a realtor come in or a local expert come in and give us like a breakdown of the area, divide the area into different parts, like what's an A area, B area, C area. But you and I were speaking earlier, and you said Kirkland Lake has a population of like 9,000 to 10,000 people, right? Most cities have like at least 100,000 people. So it's hard to break it down. So do you just kind of want to give me a rundown of the area? Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like just,
for
like
sure.
as like if I were a new investor, sorry.
Yeah, so Kirkland Lake has 4 traffic lights, just to give you a frame of reference here. So it sounds small, but
4 traffic lights.
Yeah.
Holy, okay, crazy.
But it's kind of unique because Kirkland Lake is sort of quite a bit north-south. So Government Road, that's the yellow strip there, that's the main highway, runs through town. That's where the majority of the sort of retail and stuff is. And then that's where there's a lot of activity. Like there's a couple of restaurants, so that's kind of where the nightlife is. So the main downtown core there.
Okay, you know what? Let me try to draw the downtown core. So I'm going to start at here, then go down here.
I would put it almost Duncan.
Duncan.
Duncan, where the green dot is, or your
Yep.
green pin is dropped there. I would say that's probably, I mean, you got the post office and stuff to the right, but for the most part, you know, sort of Duncan over, yeah.
Go down.
Yep. Yeah, we'll keep going to the left there. So Paul's new and used would be just on the bottom left corner of your screen there. Where the pin is, yeah, it says Paul's new and used there. Yeah, that's where I would sort of end it. That's kind of the main kind of drag there.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be super accurate, but this is like the downtownish area, right?
Yep. Yeah, the
Cool.
main downtown core.
And like it's not like if it's an A or B area, it's like, you know, it's gonna depend building to building, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Absolutely. And there's definitely, you know, COVID has hit us the way it's hit many other communities. So we've definitely got some vacancies that have opened up on the main strip. I'm actually kind of excited to see, you know, what the vision is moving forward and what new opportunities will arise. I'm already starting to see people posting about, you know, new hair places and new restaurants and those kinds of things. So I always enjoy that. The main, if you can slide the map to the left a little bit there, so you can see, so there's the Canadian Tire.
Canadian Tire, right here, yeah.
Yeah, so there's Canadian Tire, that's the gas bar. The actually Canadian Tire store is just just on the north there. To the right there, we say Lifestyles and then Canadian Tire. So that's kind of our little sort of mall type area. So that's where we have like a lot of kind of the main chain type stores. And then we have the big independent there, which is just south of that.
Okay.
By the maps there. Yeah.
I guess this is independent? Or?
Yeah, nope. Down to your right there, just below the McChesney there.
Oh, there we go.
Loblaws Pharmacy is what they call it, but it's actually your independent grocer. There it is. Awesome. So that's one of the two large grocery stores in town. Then there's a Foodland at the other end.
Okay.
So that's sort of when people need to get groceries and get supplies and stuff, they'll kind of go to that end of town and they'll be able to, one of the Tim Hortons is there and the McDonald's. And there's a really nice pond there as well, where it's got a 1 kilometer track. So a lot of people go there and they'll exercise and that kind of stuff. Is
this the only major grocery store? Is there Northville's Food Basics Walmart?
No, so if you follow Government Road along to the other end of town, there's a Foodland right there. So that's awesome. The second grocery store. And then there's a smaller one called Pronto, which is 24 hours. And that sort of caters to, they've got some hot, fresh food and some sort of your staple groceries. They're like a really big convenience store, I guess would be the best way.
Okay, cool.
We've got a couple of hardware stores in town. So we just looked at Grant's Home Hardware there.
Grant's Home Hardware. I'm sorry, I'm having
kind of just in the middle of your screen, just up right where your cursor is. The blue one to the right.
There we go.
Yep, Grant's Home Hardware. And then we've also got a Bros Building Center, and they're a little bit farther out. They're going to be off the map.
Okay.
We don't. We've got the big hospital there on the right-hand side.
There we go.
And right across, so it's got the extended care. It's got the TPR, which is the second seniors residence I was talking about, and then the big Northern College Kirkland Lake campus is there as well.
Yeah, I actually have a question about the hospital. How's the Airbnb market for the hospital in Kirkland Lake?
There's not a real strong Airbnb market up here. Like I check Airbnb periodically, and I know there's a couple of like cottage rentals and stuff that people have on there, but this is not a market. I guess we've got 3 or 4 hotels, and I think most people, if they're going to come to town for a period of time, then they probably stay in the hotels. There isn't a strong Airbnb market.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that we couldn't try it and see if it worked. It just is not something that people have really focused much on up to this point.
Cool. And are there any areas that are primarily, like, is everything a duplex and more, or are there single family areas? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the outskirts, you're going to find more single families. So for example, if you want to zoom in a little bit, you see where it says Pronto store there?
Pronto.
To the right a little bit. Yep. There. So if you zoom in there a little bit. So that's kind of an area on the major streets like Prospect there's a lot of multi-units on Prospect.
Okay.
And then, you look at Taylor and you look at Poplar, and the buildings, there might be a couple of, 3-unit or 4-unit, but most of those would be duplexes or single family homes. So as you leave the main streets and get more into sort of the residential, you're going to find the smaller buildings, and particularly the ones farther out, right?
So like bigger streets such as Prospect, like Poplar have like multis, and then it's like, the smaller residential roads have single families, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and Government Road typically, that's the concentration with the largest number of multifamilies is Government Road.
Because it's the biggest road. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
So
the challenge with those big multifamilies is making sure that there's parking available.
Yeah.
For your tenant.
Yeah. So for the rent, like what's the overall rate? I know it all depends on how many parking spaces you have, how much laundry in-law suite. If there's a laundry suite in it. But what range is it on the higher end?
So for my 2 bedrooms, I'm getting somewhere between $900 and $1,200 a month plus hydro. And then for my 3 bedrooms, I think we're getting around $1,400-1,500 a month plus hydro.
14, 15. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And I think one thing to consider is like, I think you spoke about this, is when you have shift workers, there's not much maintenance involved, right? So it's an easy $950, right? Because like your hydro bill is less. I mean, you don't really worry about it, but your heating bill is less, your water bill is less, and like they don't really break anything, right? And I'm guessing your tenants are handy, so they're not going to call you to fix a light bulb or the smaller things. So yeah. You don't really very often hear from them. If the something happens with the toilet, then they'll typically fix it on their own, like for the period of time that they're home, they just want to be left alone to sleep, and then when they're gone, they're gone, and you're not going to hear from them. So. Yeah, that's why I always think like maybe having an A tenant is not the best idea, because like, would you want a software developer or someone who's handy, right? Because I'm a software developer.
Yeah.
My light bursts. Hey, Sandstone guys, you gotta come fix my thing. But my dad, on the other hand, he's more handy. He's gonna fix his own light, right? So I'd prefer to have him as a tenant. Anyways, I think I have a good breakdown of Kirkland Lake. I'm considering to move there now because of the outdoor activities. But yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Do you want to? What's the best place people can reach you if they wanted to learn more about Kirkland Lake?
If you want to learn more about Kirkland Lake, then by all means, info@sandstonemanagement.ca is the best email address. You can call the office 705-567-5031. The ladies in the office are very comfortable answering questions and providing information. And then they'll do probably send you a link to my Calendly, and you'll be able to book time, and we can connect one-on-one, and I can answer questions about particular properties. I always like when people are looking at Kirkland Lake, they come to me with a couple of listings, so I sort of get a sense of what you're interested in, and we can talk about the area that you're looking at and the type of tenant that would be present in that area. It's always easier to talk about specific examples than it is to speak in general.
Like general stuff like this. I'm joking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna put all of that info in the description, so they can find it all there. Anyways, again, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for coming on.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and letting me share a little bit about one of the gems in Northern Ontario. I appreciate it.
Please subscribe. That way you can get a notification when we release more videos. And if you like the video, just like it on YouTube, Anyways, thank you so much for watching it. Take care.